So we all laugh every time somebody tells another player to keep their head down and tell everybody how that's terrible advice. But equally bad advice is keeping your left arm straight in the golf swing. And I know we've all been told that that's what we're not doing correctly, but keeping the left arm straight really does a lot to kill the pivot in the golf swing, and also does a lot to change the geometry that we need to deliver the club in an efficient and effective way. So stay tuned so we can talk about what we want to do with our lead arm, and I can promise you it's not keep it straight. So if we're not going to keep the lead arm straight in the golf swing, then what are we going to do with it? Well, we really got to think about the lead arm and the different pieces that make up the actual arm. So within this lead arm, we have a lead wrist, a lead elbow, and a lead shoulder. And where a lot of people get in trouble when they try to keep their left arm straight in the golf swing is that they'll grab a hold of the golf club and then they'll try to hyperextend their lead arm and lock it out to straight. And that really creates a lot of issues for people throughout the golf swing, which we're going to talk about more here in just a moment. But thinking about this lead arm and the three pieces, we want to get this wrist to where it can move in all dimensions. And we want to get this elbow to where it can fold and release. Okay, fold and contract. And then we want to get the shoulder, most importantly, to where it can rotate within the socket, because that's going to be very, very important when it comes to the transition and delivery of the club to the ball. So with the left arm, or the lead arm, we want to be making sure that when we set up, that we get the elbow of the lead arm pointed towards our target. That's a really nice place to start. Now, what a lot of golfers will find is that when they try to get to that position, they'll find that they've got their left hand really across the top of the club like this and have this hand in a very, very strong position. So what we want to do is we want to actually get this hand more neutral and realize that we can still actually rotate the forearm, and we don't have to keep the wrist and the forearm connected, but they actually can move independently from one another. And that's going to allow us to create a lot softer, more pliable, more movable arm or lead arm to the structure. So now that I've got this to where I'm holding it, I've got my face square, and I've got my lead elbow pointed towards the target. Now we'll show you that from down the line so you can see what that looks like. And now where this really gets nice is that my left hand is always going to be the higher hand on the club. My right hand is going to be the low hand. So I'm going to bring my right hand in here underneath the left, and from your perspective, you'll still be able to see some of my lead arm. And that's really, really important here, because if my right hand is lower on the golf club, then I'm going to want my right elbow lower than my left elbow, or lead intro elbow. So we can see how that looks, and that's really going to put me in a position for success. Now, when we see people get the left arm or lead arm locked out, what we tend to see is that they have to add some radial deviation to the lead wrist. And now we see that the handle is much lower. So I've got a lot of radial deviation here in my lead wrist, and that's really going to do some funny things. So we can see that now the head kind of wants to sit with the toe up, and we can see that the face is kind of more pointed to the right, and I'm having to lean it more forward. But now when I get in here and I set up on it, you no longer, from your perspective, can see my lead arm. So we can see that if I turn this around, my trail arm is now higher than my lead arm. And this is a really tough place to play from with the driver, because it's going to be very easy for my face or my right hand to overtake my left and cause the face to shut. So when we get this right arm on top of the left, not only are we going to typically see more of a downward attack angle with the driver, but we're also going to see that we're losing the face because it's getting a little shut relative to the path, and hitting down, it's a bad recipe with the driver. So this all kind of comes out of getting this lead arm in a little better position when we set up to the golf ball, by getting this elbow in a position to where it's pointed towards the target, and the left hand isn't so strong or weak and is fairly neutral, and in the last three fingers of the lead hand resting against the piezoform. That's kind of the spot-on check for this grip here. So now that we've talked about getting that lead elbow pointed towards our target, as well as making sure that our lead arm is a little bit more visible from down the line relative to our right arm, and we can see it at setup, now what are we going to do when we swing this golf club? How does this play out in the golf swing? So like we said, this lead arm staying straight really does a lot of bad things to the golfer. So if I get this thing all locked out on me, my lead arm's all locked now. Now when I go to take it back and keep it straight, we can see there's a lot of lift happening there with my arms. There's not a lot of the club moving around, just a whole lot of vertical lift. And the reason for that is because my left arm's locked out and I can't actually rotate my lead shoulder around my spine. It wants to just go forward towards the ball, and it wants to go back away from the target. So this is really a difficult place because now I've got all this depth and all this turn that I could be using, but instead the club is super steep because of the left arm being locked out and straight. Now, where this really gets interesting from the ground reaction force perspective is that if I have a locked out lead arm and I try to lift it, which we just talked about, you can see that a lot of my pressure is staying left and my spine is pointed back at the target and I've reverse pivoted. So one of the biggest causes for the Danny Noonan reverse pivot is this left arm being locked out. So what we want to try to do here when we're thinking about swinging is we want to think about both our wrist, both our elbows, and both of our shoulders getting into this relationship to where the trail side is underneath the lead side, and then we want to manage that relationship throughout the golf swing. So we can see here that I'm really just letting everything stay nice and soft and together within the arm structure. So just really staying nice and together, elbows squeezed, everything looking good here, nice and soft, not a lot of tension. And then I want to manage that same relationship with the right arm underneath supporting the golf club in transition. And then I can release it, and now I can close and square this with the body. So you can see that by getting this left arm to be a little softer, it allows for this lead side to rotate more around the trail side, which is going to be super beneficial when it comes to creating a pivot and a turn around the body. So when it comes to making improvements to your golf swing, and if you're like me and videoing your golf swing and taking a look and trying to figure out which way is going to be the best path forward for you, if we see this left arm kind of disappearing because the trail arm's a little higher, and or we see the left arm kind of lifting a lot and staying locked, that's a great place for us to start. So once again, just trying to kind of work through a little different concept, meaning that we don't have to try to do this all at once. We're just going to try to kind of break it down over time. We want to really get set up, and I think for most people, what we're going to experience is when we get it in the last 3 fingers of the lead hand with the elbow pointing at the target, I think most people are going to experience a much weaker left hand than they're used to. And this is going to be very, very different, and it's going to require a lot of trust. So even though we feel like our left hand is much weaker, we're just going to let that right arm stay underneath, and we're just going to try to maintain that relationship throughout the entire swing, making that big turn, getting the right arm to stay under in transition, getting the release of the wrist to happen, and then squaring this up with the rotation of the body. And that's going to be a great way to help you really create more turn and create more speed, which should turn into longer drives. So we hope you found this helpful. If you're able to take your left arm out of the golf swing a little bit and create a bigger turn and see some more speed, let us know in the comments. Have questions about us? Let us know in the comments. We're going to do our best to try to reach out and make sure we get you guys the answers you need so that you can play the best golf of your life. So make sure to subscribe to our channel so you never miss a new video. And until next time, keep grinding.